Well, welcome once again to another video interview.
Thank you.
Today we're visiting with Brendan Staunton. Brendan is an English singer of Irish heritage from Bradford, West Yorkshire. Along with his brother Des on bass, he fronted the goth band Tea House Camp in the mid-'80s. Then both brothers, along with Sean Quinn, guitar, keyboards, and Kevin Mann on drums, formed Dubh Chapter in 1987, briefly known as The Alchemist. The band's recorded output is a couple of singles and an album in 1990. A follow-up album was never officially released, only on bootleg. In 2020, Brendan released a solo album entitled Last of the Light. So welcome, Brendan.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
You're very welcome. So let's go back to the beginning. You were born in England, but your parents are from West Ireland. Is that correct?
Yeah, my father was from Galway and my mother from Mayo, but they met in England in Bradford. I think a lot of Irish came to Bradford at the time mainly because the houses were cheap and there was a lot of work. So that's the origin story. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah, it's similar to the Smiths, right? They were all like second generation Irish, I believe.
There are quite a lot. I think it's always been a strong thing with music in the Irish community, and it's not a surprise that quite a lot of Irish heritage people end up playing in bands or in other ways being involved in music. Yeah, so they've stopped coming now. It's kind of strange to think of yourself as part of a wave of immigration, but we were, we came from a particular time to a particular time, and then we stopped coming. And so that's all changed. Ireland's much more, I think, able to sustain itself now. At the time, it was a fairly poor country. I think it's
Right.
much more affluent now than it was at the time.
Yes, I believe so. Of course, we had our influx decades ago, and I guess that's kind of slowed down quite a bit too. Let's talk about your childhood and your upbringing. What are your recollections of that period in your life?
Well, strictly, if we're going to, obviously it's a big thing to summarize, but if you're going to talk about music, which I think is probably best, I think the biggest thing was the family next door got into a bit of financial trouble, and I didn't know this at the time, but my father bought their record player and all their records as a sort of way of getting them out of difficulty. I didn't know this at the time, but this gave me and my family at a very young age, me and Des in particular, we had all these records all of a sudden. We had singles by the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. We had all kinds of wacky tunes, that I think ignited us into music. And you just tended to pick up on certain songs. There was a song by Elvis called That Night, which I still think is a great tune that you don't hear about much. We had a few Beatles singles, Help, and I think an EP, and lots of odd things as well that we liked. I really liked the Marianne Faithfull tune that Mick Jagger wrote. I can't remember what it's. As Tears Go By, that was a big song in our house, and I guess it just developed from there. A lot of kids were into music because I think in our generation, music was really ahead. It was like leading in terms of technology and guitars, electric guitars, synthesizers. There was lots of technology that got people interested, and of course it was a sort of response to the post-war, rather grim and conformist era. A lot of us really liked seeing bands with long hair and guitars that just looked otherworldly, and we loved all the new sounds that were coming. And I was swept up in that. I was very, very typical of that generational thing. Nowadays you've got all kinds of other things. You've got video games and video technology and so many other areas that people can express themselves. But music was definitely leading at the time, and I've always thought that was why so many of us were so keen on it.
Well, that was a really good deal there that you got all those singles and music there at an early age. That was
Yeah, it was great. It was really great. I mean, without that, I don't even know. I don't know if I think I would have picked up on it. We had a radio as well. My parents loved music. They just didn't much like pop music, but you couldn't avoid pop music. If you bring a radio in the house, you're going to get pop music. You know? so yeah, but these records were great.
Were either one of your parents musically inclined? Did they?
My dad fiddled about a bit with some instruments, but I never heard much of it. My mother was really keen. I think he was more into traditional music, traditional Irish music. And I think he had sort of a more sort of roots-based approach to what he liked, whereas my mum liked everything. She liked Sinatra, she even liked a lot of modern pop music. She still loves music, you know. It's always been an enthusiasm of hers, and she's always crossed boundaries. And I think I'm more like her in that respect. I've always liked all types of music, and I don't have any particular care for roots music. I don't regard it as any more important than any other kind of music. You know, to me, it's all music. So I suppose I'm more like her in that respect.
Right, I'm the same way. Let me ask you about you and Des. What's the age difference there?
Just a couple of years. He's a couple of years younger. He likes to pretend he's an extra year, but it's not true. We always argue about it. It's actually 2 years and about 3 months.
We can definitely tell that you're brothers, you know, by the pictures. They look a lot alike. Any other siblings?
Yeah, I have a youngest brother, John, and I have 2 sisters. Okay. I'm the oldest of all, so we all came in a fair rush. So we're quite close as a family, not geographically, but we've always been very close as brothers and sisters. Unusually so for Irish families in Bradford, I understand. But yeah, we all get on quite well.
Oh, good. Well, that was my next question. Were you close?
Yeah, me and Des were very close, but unfortunately he's moved to Australia. He now he has a band of his own that he plays children's music in. Fabulous Lemon Drops, they're called. And he releases records. I think he also releases some that aren't specifically for children, but that's where he makes that's what he does most of, doing songs for kids. When he had his own kid, he just thought, it seemed to change him, and that's something that he wanted to do.
Is that right? Okay. Have you been to visiting?
Just once, yeah, just once, and that was quite a few years ago. And he came over once as well, not just a few years back. Yeah, I mean, you know, we get on like we always did. We always got on very well. I mean, that's why we were able to stand being in a band together for quite a long time, even before Dubh Chapter. So yeah, it's nice.
Well, that's good. You know, that you have stayed close. Who became interested in music first, you or Des?
I think we both liked it. I think I was older, so I was a bit more active. You know, I was just like, I would get the guitar and I would start a band, and I realized I had a bass player that wasn't as good as Des, and it just didn't seem any point not having Des in the band, really, because Des was just a very good player, and everything he did as a bassist, he really knew how to lock onto the drums. He was a lot better bass player, really, than you saw in the band. He really could play anything, but he had a very good sense of rhythm, very, very rock solid, and that made it easy to write songs as well, because he could always find those notes that just made them a little bit more interesting harmonically. That was something that we were quite interested in.
That's really good that you had your brother in there, and you know, you could kind of work off of each other, and you knew each other.
Yeah, and the other thing was that, I mean, there are a lot of people who talk about bands, and they spend a lot of time trying to form bands. I know it sounds weird, but there's a lot of people who are always theoretically kind of trying to form a band. And because it was us, all we needed was a drummer, really. for a long time, and we could make music, and didn't always matter a great deal who that drummer was, but we had some for quite a long time. We had a guy called Martin Hutt, but then at some point I just thought it would be nice to have somebody different to me playing guitar, maybe add a bit more variety to the sound, and maybe bring a bit of keys in. So then we got Sean in, and we got rid of our old drummer. And got in Kevin Mann, because he was just a better all-around drummer and a more cheery kind of character, easier to get along with. And the four of us were very tight for a while.
Good. Talk a little bit about Tea House Camp before we get into Dubh Chapter.
Yeah, Tea House Camp was, well, the thing was, music was it seemed to me contemporary music was very aggressive at that time. I had friends in like the Southern Death Cult up in Bradford, and their music was very heavy, and everybody was dyeing their hair, and everybody was looking very outlandish. And we couldn't help but be influenced by that. We wanted to make an impact, and everybody was trying to be noisier and more aggressive and more kind of extreme than everybody else. I think we were quite exciting as a band, but I don't think musically we were as interesting as we were able to become later on. But yeah, it was, the band was called Tea House Camp. It was named after a Chinese, what's the word? Concentration camp. They gave their concentration camps these really beautiful names like Benevolent Forest and whatever. I think people still do that. And we got the name from there. And we played a lot of gigs in London. We played with New Order. We played with Johnny Thunders. I think we were quite exciting, but I think maybe not as focused as we became a bit later on lyrically. And I was still kind of developing as a writer, as a lyricist. I was just putting nice words together, and then eventually I realized I wanted the songs to mean something. I think it's an evolution a lot of songwriters go through.
Okay. So just the 1 7-inch release, and then
we did To Kill, Stabbing Back, which. I think I got from, I was always reading these books by G.I. Gurdjieff for my sins. And it was just a little phrase of sort of, what's the word? Instructions for humanity. We were that extreme. I mean, it was kind of silly looking back really, but we made some good noise.
Well, it was a time in your life, you know?
Yeah.
Definitely was. So what was the decision to form a new band?
Yeah, that was very clear. We were playing a gig called Porterhouse in sort of in the Midlands of England, and it really didn't go that well. The locals were quite hostile, and I just felt we needed to be more commercial, really. I suppose more kind of. We needed to write songs that we listened to. We were the biggest problem a lot of bands have is to sort of be exciting on stage, but also make songs that are nice, that you want to listen to, that you might imagine hearing on the radio. That's a problem for a lot of bands. It's not even just a problem for small bands. I mean, like I really like Phoenix, for example, a French band, but the songs that really work for them in the arenas. You know, they're great on record, but a lot of the stuff that they've played in the past on record just doesn't translate to the arenas. So I suppose our thing was we wanted to be exciting. We wanted to be, we wanted to get the crowd going and everything, but we also wanted to make the switch to that side of it more and concentrate on trying to make better melodies and write songs that were more rounded and a bit more mature. And we felt that was our shot. That was our last shot, really, to maybe make it in the music business.
Right. Well, originally you were called the Alchemist.
Oh yeah, we had a few names. We were called the Septembers. We were called all kinds of things. I don't know if we ever really got the name we wanted, but the Dubh Chapter stuck after a while, but the music was always the same. It was always going in that direction. We sort of liked it's funny. It wasn't like we were copying U2. Some people say we did. It was more that we just wanted to be more close to what we listened to and what we liked. And that was what we were listening to. And Sean came in and he was a guitarist. He loved U2. He loved other bands too. I mean, he loved all kinds of bands. I think the distinction with us was that we were always a bit more varied, that our music was a bit more varied in that, yeah, the first track on the album might sound like U2 or something, but after that, a lot of it was quite different. And also, I think a little bit more poppy. I think we were a bit more, I think we wrote songs that were a bit more classic than U2's songs. Their songs always sounded like they were written in the studio, in rehearsals, and they're kind of pieced together. And I love the band. I think they're a great band. Whereas I think we wrote a lot more songs ourselves and brought them to the studio, as well as working on things in the studio. And I think our sound was different. And I don't really sing like Bono either.
I don't hear U2 in your music, and I don't hear it. But I think that's an easy category for a lot of people to say, oh, they sound like U2.
People love a shorthand, don't they? And
right.
We were slightly playing up the Irish thing, because you get a record company, and the first thing they want to do is find a way to market you. And, well, Sean was Irish, Kevin's family were Irish. We were, completely Irish heritage, even though we're Bradford lads. So they needed an angle, and that was the angle that we chose. So we kind of played it up a bit, and I don't know whether it was a good idea or not, really. It was all we had. I mean, it was all that pulled all these disparate songs together. That was the only thing that we had, so we went with it. And
right.
yeah.
So Dubh, is that how you pronounce it? Dubh?
It's actually pronounced Dove, which is almost like dove, but not quite. It's a letter that doesn't really exist in English. It's like somewhere between a B and a V. I mean, that's why we always said dub. The other thing was, what was quite funny was, but me and my brother both had sort of dreadlocks at the time, so there was a sort of a thing of it being a pun on that as well.
Oh, dub music, yeah. Right. I can see. And it means black, is that right?
It means black, yeah. It just sounded nice. We didn't think about it too much.
Yeah, I had heard the U2 song, what is it, and Cat Dub and Cat Dub.
Yeah. Black Cat, I think.
Yeah, black. That's what that means. So, what were some of the influences, musical influences, other members brought to the band?
Yeah, I think everybody brought something different, really. I mean, I think I was much more broad in my music tastes. At the time, I was actually getting quite interested in R&B, in soul music. And also a lot of crossover bands. A lot of people talk about Steely Dan nowadays. I always liked them. I liked them when I was 13. Yeah, a great band. I liked a lot more American music. I liked Todd Rundgren. I liked the Isley Brothers. There were a lot of bands I liked where they crossed over between rock and soul in a way, or between, like, Steely Dan, it would be rock and jazz, and Isley Brothers, it was soul, but it had a lot of guitar in it. And I find that was a thing with me. A lot of my favorite bands, even like Thin Lizzy, they were a rock band, really, but I always thought the singer Phil Lynott brought a little bit of soul into it. My brother was much more, he liked his music more straightforward, I think. He would say he was very much more in the rock vein, and he loved a load of rock bands. But he also loved David Bowie, and he loved the Psychedelic Furs, and he had his own kind of things that he liked. Sean was very, very broad as well, but I think he kicked almost into the sort of prog rock thing, which he kept quiet at the time. It's okay to talk about it now, but at the time it was a bit out of fashion, so he just kept it under his hat. And of course now he's working with a very electronic kind of band, so he's bringing out that side of himself more. But he liked all kinds of things, really, did Sean. He liked a lot of Irish folk music as well. Kevin was just a regular music fan, really. I think he liked a bit of everything.
Okay, well, good. Who were Big Life Management?
Yeah, there was an American guy that called Greg Rogers, and he formed this company, and he signed us up basically, and he was partly responsible for us getting a record deal. I'm a little fuzzy about it because there was another guy called Jazz Summers that was definitely involved in it, And we were eventually signed up by EG Records, which is a subsidiary of Virgin, and quite a fancy record company. They had King Crimson and Roxy Music at one point.
Right, all right. I was going to mention that. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, apparently our sort of representative there, she tried to get Robert Fripp to listen to our album, because actually Sean was both me and Sean were huge Robert Fripp fans, Crimson fans. And he said that he wanted £100 or something. He said he listened to it for £100. I don't know. I think she decided she wasn't going to go ahead with that. That wasn't really the spirit of music or something.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah. I was gonna. You're psychic too, because you're reading ahead the questions that I have. You're going. Was that? Did you find EG was a good fit for you guys, for the band?
I think it's safe to say this now. We were getting on fine with them, but I think there was a row between two of the people there, and at some point, an American promoter contacted them and said they were interested in taking us on tour in America, and that message wasn't passed on. And I think that was a big, big disaster for the band, because I think that could have really helped us. I think we would have been better suited. Our music might have been better suited across the pond than in England. And if we'd built up a bit of a touring base, we might have been able to make more of a go of it.
Oh, wow.
So it's one of those things. Every band has these stories.
Yeah, it is funny how those one little slip up, can cause. I mean, for the future of the whole venue, the whole band. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't get that story firsthand. I got it from Sean, but I have no reason to believe that Sean wouldn't tell me the truth. But yeah, that's what he told me, because one of the guys managed his band afterwards, so. They fell out, and he told him the story. I mean, I got over it now, but at the time when I heard that, I was a bit shocked.
Wow, yeah. So being signed with EG, is that why Steve Hillage came to produce your material? Was there the tie-in?
Oh no, we were looking around. This one really great quality that Sean had was that he was very imaginative and very ambitious, and he said, "Why don't we get Kate Bush?" I mean, that's a crazy idea in a way, but in another way, it's not I'm calling, and finding out. We spoke to 3 or 4 people. We just didn't get that feeling that you get when you think you can work with them. Kate Bush obviously turned us down, I believe. And then Sean came up with the idea of Steve Hillage, and we knew Steve Hillage was trying to build a reputation for himself as a producer. So we all just straight away, forget everybody else. If we can get this guy, it's great, not only because he's a great musician, but also because it would be a real feather in our cap, as a band, to have a named producer like him, who'd worked with Simple Minds and quite a few other good, solid acts. So we had a meeting with him in Notting Hill at this restaurant, I remember, and it all went swimmingly. And before long, we were heading off to the countryside to record an album.
Was he? So he was fairly easy to work with. You guys got along real well with him.
He was great. He was really great. Yeah, we had a really fabulous time. I mean, it was a time when we could just be musicians. He's a very friendly guy. He's a few years older than us, so he was bringing extra. He was way more of a musician than we were, to be honest, at least at the time. And it was a great opportunity. And he understood the band. He understood what we were and what we wanted to do really well. We didn't have to explain anything to him. He saw it straight away. So it was great. It was a great fit.
So he wasn't one of those heavy-handed producers. Did he kind of let you guys do your thing in the studio and interject ideas, or how did the recording process go?
He was very much more. He could get his way, but he was much more clever and just a little bit more indirect in getting what he wanted from us. You realize that recording, I went to a Rolling Stones exhibition in London recently of all their history, and you realize that you can write a song, but getting that performance down is all about how people feel and how you get along and the moods that you're in every day. And he was very good at that side of things. He was also quite technical. He understood music. He understood production in a quite hands-on kind of way as well. So I think he just created a nice, friendly atmosphere that we were able to thrive in.
Very good, very good. Your first single, "Happy as the Bride," did fairly well. Even NME gave a good review. That's rare.
They did well, but it just didn't quite break through. You know, we didn't quite get onto the top 30 or whatever it was. So you know, that was a shame. It would have been nice. I think the single was a good song. I still listen to it sometimes, which is really weird for me. But I just thought it was well put together, and it was the obvious single. I was very happy with it. I wish we'd made a video for it. I think we should have. I think we should have really gone all out for it. I'm not really sure why we didn't.
Okay. During this time, where did you tour? I know you guys were touring. Any memorable gigs?
Well, we played all over the country, really. There were some really good gigs. There were some not so great gigs. I remember playing at our hometown in Bradford once, and that was a really great gig. And I don't know, I did an interview with the newspaper, and it was just one of the few interviews I've done where I got it spot on. You know, I really kind of nailed the interview. I got him to say all the things I wanted to say. It's like trying to speak through a kind of distortion device, and you've got to make sure your messages get across. It took me a while to learn that lesson. You know, I used to just sit down and just blather, and honestly, I could come out with all kinds of rubbish. And I think we did a great gig that night. We did some good gigs down the years. It is quite a long time ago now, though. It's just kind of hard to remember. There was some good. Where else could we play that was really good? We used to play in this venue in Islington. I can't really remember the name. I remember we packed that out one night. That was really exciting. But it was weird. There were some really strange gigs as well. You know, like we played a community hall once, and everybody just sat on chairs in front of us. And when we finished the first song, they all clapped. It was just so weird. Or just clapping like as if it was a school concert or something, you know.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's a strange scene, the English touring scene. It's not, or at least at the time, it was very weird. It would have been great, like I say, to have gone to America, because I think we were a bit more, our music was a bit more set up for that style, you know, the big halls, the kind of, we'd love to have played Red Rocks, you know, something like that.
Oh, yeah. Any bands that you supported or helped support you that you remember?
You mean like that played on the same bill?
Right. Bill, same bill.
Yeah, we played with Blur. We played with, as I said, New Order. No, that was before Dubh Chapter, actually, to be honest. Who else did we play with? Oh God, it's kind of hard to remember now, going back. Yeah, I forget. I'm sure there's some good names that will come up, but probably have to put them down on paper for you afterwards or something.
That's all right.
We were involved with a lot of bands. I know it sounds really strange, but my singing teacher said that I found Sinead O'Connor for her. I don't know if that's true or not, but she insists it was. It's the same thing happened with the girl who sang for Stereolab, and I know that happened. I remember her asking if I knew a singing teacher, so I found a singing teacher for Mary from Stereolab as well. She was a bit of a friend. I'm just struggling to remember the bands that we played with. We played with all kinds of guys. We played with God. No, I'll have to write it down somewhere.
That's all right. I should have probably given you a list of questions beforehand.
That's fine. I mean, we did a lot of headliners, so I guess we sometimes saw bands coming up behind us, like Ride, and like I say, we played with Blur that time, and we could see they were going places, and they were younger than us too. So
Oh,
that was annoying.
I love Ride. I love Ride. Especially, what is it? OX4. That song. Oh, that's a great song. Now your second single, excuse me, Touch and Go. Now you decided to do a video on that one, right?
Actually, it was more of a video to get the record label behind us. The original idea for the video, we were going to go to Ireland, and actually, yeah, I remember now that the first video we were going to do was going to be for Happy as the Bride, which was going to be, we were going to find a wedding in Ireland, and we were going to sort of take scenes from it and put it into a stage thing. But this video that we ended up doing was really just a sort of studio set. We were set up in a rehearsal studio and just mimed along. And then also they filmed a gig that we did in London a few nights before. And they just mixed the two videos and I think a little bit of footage as well. I was just wandering around. Yeah, they just put it all together to get the record company behind us and maybe then get them to put some budget behind getting us a proper video. But it ended up being the video because it was actually quite well executed, but it was very cheap. I think it was just 10 grand at the time, which wasn't even much in those days. So yeah, it was, that was the effort for the second single. And second single's reviews were, I guess, a bit more mixed. I don't remember too well. I think that was when people thought we were a bit more in the U2 Simple Minds vanguard.
Okay. Yeah, I've always liked the intro on that song, and the guitar. The guitar is very different on that one.
Yeah, you can hear it. I mean, I'm not comparing this to Lennon and McCartney, but you could always tell the songs I wrote, the songs Sean wrote, because his songs were. He had a really big thing about Robert Fripp, and I think that really came out on that song. The repeating kind of riff that he did on it was great. Actually, that song was. He just basically wrote the whole backing track and just presented it to me and said, "Right, off you go." So, and I had this very, very, very long verse. You know, it was like that was the biggest problem with it. So that's how I ended up doing that touch and go thing. So like the verse is split in half because when I write a song, I tend to write a shorter sort of section and then go into the chorus. But what was nice was it meant it kind of had two choruses really. In fact, it kind of had three hooks really as a song, so I think that's pretty good going. Not quite in the Bon Jovi class, but you know.
I wouldn't like being compared to. Yeah, is that a diss or what?
No. It's just that the thing is that Living on a Prayer, what I always admired about it as technically was that it has so many hooks. It's just incredible. It's just every bit of that song is a hook. And regardless of the genre, I mean, hair metal is probably about as unfashionable as it's ever going to be. It'll probably come back soon, but it's still pretty unfashionable. And regardless of that, as a piece of songwriting, it was amazing, you know, because every bit of it is a hook.
Right. Let me ask you this: what was the decision for EG to release your debut album, Silence, Cunning, and Exile, in November of all months?
Oh, I don't really know.
That's not the best month, yeah.
No, it's not. And there were a lot of things that didn't really work out. It wasn't just EG, because EG was one of what they called the Associated Virgin Labels, AVL, and they were really managing the sort of proper release dates and things like that. And apparently they'd had all their best people poached just before we joined. They'd just had a really great success with Lenny Kravitz. They were all moved on to other places, and by the time we were actually working with them, they weren't doing so well on the distribution side of things. And yeah, I think it was a mistake.
So you guys weren't really their highest priority?
No, I mean, we weren't.
Right.
We weren't, you know, some bands, they arrive like a they just arrive, they crash onto the scene like the Smiths. They've already had a big following up north, and everything kind of goes for them, and they get famous and they have hits. And I'm not even saying we were as good as them. They're a fantastic band, but we didn't really arrive like that. We were journeymen around the country, really, and then we got this chance to make an album, and I think the problem you've got when you've been in a band a long time is music changes quite a lot. It changes quite fast, and I thought we were good for what we were, but I think maybe the scene had slightly moved on. Right. There was a different sound coming out, and it just taken us too long to really make that album. I think maybe a couple of years before we might have done better. We already had the songs. It's just that it took that long to get them released.
Well, I still have my vinyl.
Excellent. That's great to see.
Right here. Yeah, I used to frequent a local store which had all kinds of imports, and I remember I hadn't heard anything from you guys, and a lot of times I just pick up an album by the cover. I like the cover. I could tell it was going to be kind of dark, a little mysterious, maybe gothy, a little bit.
It was still a little gothy, I think, in places.
So I picked that up. What was the public's reaction and the critics' response to the album? Do you recall?
I mean, we had some sales. It's not one of those albums that you'll find there's thousands of copies shipped. We were just selling them as we went. We had good sales in Ireland, I think. And you won't find a lot of copies because, like I say, there weren't a lot shipped. So we can't. I think we sold out most of them, but we never really hit the numbers to get noticed. That's how I remember it, anyway. The press. I think it was mixed. I don't. We weren't the hottest sort of thing in town. The thing that I look back on and I realize now is that a lot of what generates publicity for a band is really about controversy and standing out a little bit more in that sense. We were just musicians, and I don't even have any bitterness about that, because perhaps we should have been more aware that you need to make a noise. You need to do something that gets you noticed, and it just wasn't in us. We were fairly nice lads, really, and we just wanted to make music and write good tunes, and we didn't have anything. We didn't have anything beyond that. We weren't looking to sort of do the Sex Pistols or anything. And when you don't do that, you don't generate the heat, I guess you'd say, that eventually can become useful publicity. I mean, there are all kinds of talentless guys in music who just have made a career out of just being noisy and truculent. There's one guy in particular, I can't remember his name, that's probably just as well, he'd sue me. But he's never made anything but a noise, as far as I can tell. He's never made any kind of a racket, but he's in the papers all the time because he's connected to famous models and things. And there's a lot of people like that. It's tedious, but that's what it is. It's that's the music business for you. There's a lot of people want to do that job, and consequently, not many do.
Right. That's very true. I think about David Bowie. He was constantly reinventing himself. Every album was different, and I think that contributed to his longevity too.
I think he was very, very brave. I mean, early on he was. I didn't think his early music was all that distinguished, but he just kept pushing. And right. I mean, he was prepared to tear the script up all the time and just start again, and that was what gave him longevity. It's kind of hard, really, It's really hard to do that. I would have loved to have done that myself, but I never really got the chance. We certainly would have done something radically different if we'd kept together. We would have changed direction, because we had restlessness ourselves. We didn't want to just keep doing the same thing. In fact, I think our album was a little bit behind where we were when we released it, really. But that's the way it goes. There's always a lag in music,
True, very true. Going back to the album, my favorite track is "The Devil You Know." And I love the music, but also the lyrics to that, warning about violence.
Mm.
Um, was this from a personal experience, or someone that you knew was going through something like this in their life?
Nobody in particular. It was just an awareness of the issue, really, I would say, rather than any specific instance of it. It was just something I was aware of, and I think Sean came up with the title, and I think I was reading somewhere about most of the violence against women is by people they know, so that was kind of where the thought came from. And then I found when I was writing it that the lines spilt out fairly quickly, and the song came together. And sometimes it's like that. You just find the song almost writes itself. And I'm a little surprised that there weren't more songs on that theme, to be honest. I mean, there are so many songs that talk about how evil women are, literally evil woman, or there are a lot of songs with that as a theme, and I don't really know any of the songs that deal with domestic violence. I literally can't think of one off the top of my head. I'm always hearing songs from the 70s and that, where Robert Plant is singing, I work hard all day long, and I come home and you give me a hard time. I thought it would be fun to do, and not just fun, but actually meaningful to write about the other side of the coin, which was more prevalent.
Right. And I love your voice in that too. The emotion in it really comes across.
No, thank you. Yeah, I really did feel that song. I mean,
you can tell. Yeah. So
I really hate bullies. I've hated bullies all my life, and it was. Maybe the emotion I was drawing on was more from that than from any particular domestic situation. But the North at the time, particularly at the time, had a bit of a reputation for men being tough and women are toys, as Todd Rundgren once put it. But it's not much different now, probably, for all I know. But yeah, I think it was I'm surprised that there haven't been more songs on that theme, to be honest. I guess they're difficult to write. It's painful to write. It's painful to write lines like that.
Right. I think you have to really not feel it in a personal sense, but you feel the empathy, and feel what they're going through. You really, and it came across.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think we worked quite hard on that one. Steve, he really coaxed a good performance out of me. But I mean, you have to remember that the thing I was starting to realize about songwriting was that it's performance as well. It's not all experience. I mean, I can't write about a thing when I'm in the midst of it. I never have been able to. If I'm unhappy about, I don't know, some difficulty in my life, I can never write about it until I get some distance from it. I just don't have the objectivity. And then sometimes you just think, well, this song is a story, it's not happening to me, but it's happening. So this song is worth writing. You're writing it about yourself, because you always start with yourself, and then you start to go, oh, this is turning into this story. I'm going to go with that story. It's not my story, but it's a story,
Yeah, let me ask you this. Do you enjoy writing, composing, or working in the studio, or performing live best?
I think the bit I like best is when I like the early time of recording and the early time of songwriting. I love it when a song comes together and it just all flows, and you suddenly have a theme. I wrote a song many, many years ago that appeared on my solo album, where it had one title, I'm Only Here For You, it was called. And then we were working with this drummer, and he was so idealistic, and he just wasn't taking us seriously as a band. And I drew on the emotion of that feeling that he was rejecting us, and I was just going through my head. I was thinking, well, if that's all we mean to you, this is not going to work, this relationship. And it ended up that I used that title in the song, All I Mean to You, or Mean to You as it ended up. I used that emotion, even though the actual theme of the song was completely different. I don't know if that answered the question. I'm sorry, I got lost in that. But yeah, what was the question again? I'm sorry, I've lost my way a little bit.
That's all right. You enjoy writing, composing music.
Yeah, I get you now. Yeah, what it was it was just great when it came together, because I'm Only Here for You was not that interesting as an idea, really. All I Mean to You, if that's all I mean to you, was very interesting as an idea. I was really able to draw on that, and that's what I like. And I also just love it when you're finally recording it, and those sounds, the first time you start to hear the harmonies, it's like hearing the song new again, and you hear how it all comes together. It's a lovely feeling. I guess I'm not so keen on the end stage of finishing off a lyric or finishing off a track. I get kind of irritated at that point. There are better people than me to take care of that side of things.
That side of things. What about a song that, like an older song that you've either performed live over and over and over, or you hear it, countless times? Do you get tired after a while? It's like, okay, hearing that same song, yeah. And it was
Of course you do. I mean, the first song on the album was one of the oldest. It was Palace of Dreams. And we resurrected it. Actually, we resurrected it from Tea House Camp, funny enough. Me and Des played it to Sean. It was a tune we'd had a long time, that riff, that ninth riff. And we resurrected it. And then I think Sean helped us write a bit more of it. It wasn't completely finished. And that meant that we'd been playing that song an awful long time, even when we first played it, but it always got a great reaction. So we always had to play it. But I have to say, I was phoning in some of those performances. It's not easy. I think it's easier when you're a blues type band or a jazz type band or even a soul type band to go into a song with a bit more freedom and sing it a particular way. But the melody for that song, for example, is very nailed on. I mean, you can't really deviate from it too much. So you find it's not as flexible a kind of music to make in a way.
Right. I understand what you're saying there. Now there was going to be a second album, right? You guys started recording the demos. Then what happened?
Well, we were constantly having that time. That was when the sort of energy in the band really broke down. We started arguing a lot, and the first to leave was Kevin, and so we had to find another drummer. Eventually, we landed with this guy called Barry Kinder, an American guy from St. Louis, and he was really great drummer, and he fit really tightly. But then we had a manager who I think he was a bit divisive. He pitted me a bit against the band, saying, in fact, he actually said, I'm only going to sign Brendan up to a deal, which was, looking back, was, I mean, in a way, in the fight that I was having with the other guys, it was great. But in another way, that's how you split bands up. I mean, we deliberately, we were always very fair. We even though we all had songs we wrote, songs we didn't really write, we just had a Dubh Chapter wrote all the songs kind of rule, because that kept us together. And this guy that managed us, he was sort of pushing us apart in a way. And then Sean, we fell out with Sean, so he went his own way. And we got this guy in who was a very good guitar player, but we didn't really get on. But he did help us put together the basis of an album of good songs. I think they were much more varied than what we were doing before. I think they were much more soulful. They were a bit funkier. They were even a bit darker in places. And I think it would have been good. It would have been a great album. But yeah, the record company weren't convinced. What happens is they come around and you rehearse for them. You play the songs, and we just didn't convince them to keep us on.
That's right. Now there's that bootleg there somewhere.
Out there somewhere. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I've got all the tracks. You can actually get them now if you buy my album. You can buy a sort of box set, and that's got all the tracks on.
Oh, is that right? Well, that's what I was going to ask. Was there any chance of a record label or someone releasing that, officially releasing those tracks?
They need to be. They were demos, in the end. They weren't really good enough for consumption. I don't have the masters. All I have is digital copies, which are okay. They sound okay, but I don't know if they'd be good enough for release. But they're reasonably well recorded. You can hear what we were doing. You can hear what. I actually think I sang better on a lot of them than I did on the album, to be honest, because I'd had a bit of a rest and my voice wasn't so blown out. And I think I sang probably the best I'd sang. We had, what was his name, from Boomtown Rats, who produced it.
Yes, I read
Pete,
that one.
Pete Briquet. And he produced it, and he was really cool. And yeah, it was a shame. It would have been nice to have got a budget and take these songs. And I think we probably had the makings of a couple of singles in there as well. It wasn't all just album track type stuff. Although I would say it was, it wasn't pop music really. It was probably a little bit more rocky, a little bit more, a little bit deeper. I think it would have been a great album. I'm kind of sad in a way we never made it.
For me, well, you were developing as a band too.
We were developing, yeah. We were all developing. Although me and Sean especially were quite different in our outlook. We both really liked King Crimson. I know it sounds strange, but it was like a continuing kind of thing. And I think it gave us a sort of a sound of our own between us and that completely chaotic band that's completely different to us. We were finding a sort of sweet spot where we were able to draw on a little chaos from that type of band and bring it into what we did. And it would have been great, it would have been great if we could have kept it all together, but circumstances didn't work out. And sometimes you just have to say it was not meant to be.
Right. Well, let me ask you how you got invited to sing on Ultramarine's 1991 single Weird Gear. Yeah,
that was a bit of an outlier. The band Ultramarine, they had recorded this entire track with a Kevin Ayers sample.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Now, I don't know what song it's from. I should know. I've probably forgotten. And they were not sure that they were going to get permission to do it from the man himself. So they brought me in as a backup, gave me a sum of money, and I sang it. And it turned out in the end, it was an interesting experience because at first I just sang it the way I'd sing it. Then I listened more closely to what Kevin Ayers did, and it was slightly different. So I sang it exactly like he sang it. And then everybody was going, because the thing about sampling is it's much more about sound on sound. It's not about notes. And his voice was close enough to sound like it belonged in the track, but in reality was slightly out of tune. So I went back to singing it my way, and they were very happy. And then I think they just did it. They just decided that they liked what I'd done, and they put it out, which is weird because I definitely saw a picture of them later on with Kevin Ayers in Ibiza or somewhere where he lives. So they must have had a reconciliation. And it came out. It was a bit of a dance hit, which was a surprise to me.
Wow.
Probably the most successful thing I've done.
Yeah, Kevin Ayers tied into that. Wow. That's that's a good story. I'll remember that. What about now Crossing Quinn? That's Sean Quinn, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I understand in 2017, Sean, did he extend an invite to sing on there?
Yeah, I was on a beach actually, I think it was in India somewhere, and I get a text saying, "Contact me when you get back. It's about I want you to work on something with me." And I hadn't heard from Sean for years, And he said, it's a musician, you know. But it was amazing because I would have said, I still would say that probably my favorite track, music track of all time is Starless by King Crimson. I just think it's an extraordinary piece of music. I absolutely love it. I still play it regularly. And he really was one of the main guys. This guy, David Cross, was the violin player. And apparently he came up with the theme, the main theme that drives the tune. In fact, there's a performance of them doing it somewhere where he plays violin rather than Robert Fripp's playing it. But anyway, Sean, just like he did with Steve Hillage, he just contacted him and said, I'd really like you to work on this album with me. And he said, yeah, he said he would. So the two of them worked on some tracks, and they gave me a couple of tracks to work on because it was going to be multiple singers, all different singers. And I was going to be one of them. So I actually recorded the vocal on my iPhone, which is why it might sound a bit thin. I was totally out of practice with singing. So my voice was quite weedy on it, but I wrote the lyrics, and Sean was quite happy with them. And I think we did 2 versions of it in the end, because I had a change of heart about the melody, and I decided to write a completely different melody. So there's actually 2 tracks, but they're very similar on the album. And yeah, it's a nice album. Hell of a lot of violin on it. I play it sometimes. I like it. It's one of the nicest things I've been involved with.
Really?
Interestingly, we were going to get the singer from Radiohead. He was going to be one of the singers, which would have been amazing. What was his name? Tom York. But that's what Sean does. You know, if he feels like it, he'll just ring somebody up and just say, you know, he'd have rung David Bowie up if he knew his number and said, "Can you play on this track?" You know. But yeah, we've got a few names on there. It was nice. The girl who sang with Air, she sang on one track, and that was really nice. I just wish I'd done. You see, after that, I got back into music. The only musical thing I was doing at the time was learning accordion, which was quite funny. And then I decided, I'm going to build my voice up again. So I found a singing teacher, and I started rebuilding my voice, which was completely different to the one I'd left behind in the 90s. Much heavier and darker, and not as easy to get in tune, but a much stronger sound. It was like a completely different voice. It was bizarre. And that was the genesis of me getting back into actually recording another album.
Right. Well, talk about why did you pick up the accordion? What was your interest in learning to play that? Well,
I'd always said I wanted to learn it, and my wife bought me the lessons. So I went along to this folk club, and you know, I had the hiring of, I had one I hired in a big box, and I was just playing it. I loved it. I really wished I'd had more time to get into it and explore it as an instrument, because I always liked it. I actually was thinking of it not so much in terms of ethnic music or anything like that. I was actually thinking of it in terms of exploring it as an instrument that I would take into a new context. So that was the thinking. But while I was doing that, I was learning all these strange old sort of French mazurkas and old English tunes and old Irish tunes and a few gypsy tunes, and it was a very interesting experience, actually.
So you weren't going to venture off into Cajun music or polka or anything like that?
Okay, we did a polka tune. Yeah, we did a polka tune. But yeah, I would have done the opposite. I would have taken the instrument to this other place. It would have been an interesting experience, jazz accordion. I don't even know if that's technically possible, because you've got a limited number of chords. But I would have definitely tried to do something different with it. Yeah, I would have wanted to do something that you hadn't heard on the accordion before, but I got swept up. It's so hard to learn to sing. You know, it's so much work. I mean, I had lessons every week, and I had to practice, and it's not an easy thing. And that eventually took over. Just trying to get my voice back was my main obsession at that time. Yeah, so that's where that went.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, the limitations on, I guess, the music industry places on instruments, you know, throughout history. And I like, you know, barrier breakers, you know, people that, like you said, you know, let's see what else we can get out of this. You know, it doesn't have to be just for this type of music, you know. I like that concept.
I mean, like the sitars on Do It Again by Steely Dan, for example. I mean, you're never going to hear sitars in that context again. They didn't care. They just thought it sounded good, and it did sound good. That was the kind of thing that was what I would have always wanted to do. I was never interested in tradition. I was always interested in, tradition can feed you, but I don't think it ever interested me to make old music again, because there were just people who were better at that than me. I'm not really that much of a musician. I see myself more as a sort of a songwriter / creative. So I want to go into the future rather than recreate, I don't know, Canadian waltzes or whatever.
Right. Okay. Well, let's fast forward to Last of the Light, what from 2020. Tell me about the album.
Yeah, it was built from some of the songs that were lying around. I'm not sure if they were Dubh Chapter songs. Oh yeah. I kind of did miss a part here. When Dubh Chapter broke up, I worked with a guy called Barry Kinder, the drummer, and we worked on some music that was a bit different. It was a sort of more ambient type of music, but almost a little bit of old-fashioned 60s type of ballads. And it was a new genre, really, we were trying to create. And again, it was another thing. We got pretty close to getting a record deal, but it didn't quite work out. So there were a few songs from that era, and I put them together and put them on the computer and thought, I'm going to reinterpret them, I'm going to make them for now. And I'm going to base it on the acoustic guitar, because I don't know why, I felt more in tune with an acoustic guitar this time than an electric guitar. And that was the thought. So I think there were 4 songs from the past, and then 5 songs that I wrote brand new using the Logic software that I bought. And actually, I probably had a total of about 20 songs in all, but I settled on these 9. And I guess in a way, I don't know why I chose the title. I always liked sunsets. I've always liked the look of them.
Yeah.
And I just came up with the phrase spontaneously one night, and my niece pointed it out, and she said, "Oh, that sounds really nice." And I thought it just kind of works, because some of the songs were old songs, and I guess they were the last of my young batch. I was just clearing out the stables and putting them together and putting them with these new songs that I'd just come up with. So there was a kind of a theme there.
Well, I know, like you said, with all the home recording equipment now, it seems like everybody's doing that. How did you find that recording at home?
Well, I didn't really. I recorded at somebody else's home, because I got in touch with a producer that lived locally. He was more of a dance producer. I thought that would be interesting. Dance, acoustic guitars, my songs. I thought, it would be interesting to hear how that comes out. So the songs, the album's got very strong beats. He had a studio in his flat that was pretty good, pretty well put together, and had lots and lots of good kit. And we were friends, so he was able to get some decent performances out of me. Not so good on the guitar, but pretty good vocal performances. And it was budget, it was shoestring budget, but it was properly recorded. But when we were finished and we'd done all the songs and got all the recordings down, I didn't feel that the masters were strong enough or punchy enough. I think it takes a particular skill to master. And I felt that Simon Haggis, who'd done the producing, I didn't feel he'd really captured it. It needed more punch. So I sent it over to this lady in Germany who had gotten in touch with, I'd have to tell you, and I think it's Valentine. I've forgotten. It's actually been a little while. I can tell you later on. And she had a studio with everything. So she basically took it apart and put it back together again, I think much stronger, much more punchy, much more contemporary. Yeah, the album bears out a lot of what I'd been trying to do with Dubh Chapter in terms of writing songs that were fully realized. The melodies were fully realized. There was a chorus, there was a verse, there was a bridge. The lyrics made sense. There was some variety of keys. There was some variety of lyrical themes. There was some variety of pace. Songs didn't all have the same structure. I'm just trying to bring lots and lots of variety into the songs. A lot of technical stuff that I think a lot of songwriters don't do nowadays, that they all did in the 70s, that they don't do. And I think the strongest influence, I think it is a bit of a neo-70s kind of sound.
Right.
Because of that. Yeah, because I mean, I hear bands now or solo artists, and the song it starts great. You think, oh, well, that sounds really nice. You put it on, and then it never changes. It just does that all the way through. And the guys will just, or the girl will just sing a different chorus on one section of it, and maybe they'll just slightly change the instrumentation. I blame Talking Heads for that. So I think they were one of the first bands to do that, where they did these tracks all the way through and they never changed, and they just changed the textures, which was a really clever idea at the time, but it's become a lazy way of writing songs that a lot of people do, and I don't like it. And I felt like, to some extent, it was a response to that. It was trying to bring back some of the songwriting values that I grew up with, where you'd hear a verse and then you'd be going, right, come on, give me something really good now. Let's take off, you know? And I tried to do that. And whether I succeeded or not is probably not for me to say, but at least I did try.
You mentioned Todd Rundgren, yeah. And I think you could hear a little bit of that, his influence. I picked up recently 2 CD of Nas. You recall, his first band.
I'd like to hear those. Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah. I haven't listened to it yet, just recently, but
it's interesting because I was hearing that he got a lot of his harmonic ideas, and so did Steely Dan. They both said the same thing. Don Fagen, rather. From Janis Ian. So I've been listening to Janis Ian recently and realizing that actually that's the real mother lode for a lot of this sound, which is just basically pop music with a little bit more advanced harmonies, which is, I think, gives it that flavor that I like. And I think gives the album that flavor as well, that gives it that slightly retro flavor.
Right.
Because I like working with ninth chords and I don't know, all kinds of exotic chords. It's sort of how I write songs. I mean, I always write with them. I don't always leave them in, but I always use them to get me a bit inspired, because they get my ear tickled, and then I'm off, And so.
Well, it's gotten some good favorable reviews. I've seen that.
It's got some favorable reviews. I'm going to do another push on the sales, because I don't think I really pushed it out hard enough. So I'm about to do a big Facebook campaign to get people behind it. And meanwhile, I'm sort of started on another one now, which is quite ambitious of me. And I'm working with a guy I've worked with before, who is much more of a musician, really, than I am. And I think that will be the difference with this new album. I think I might actually be able to get closer to the bands that I really like, to the type of very professional music that I've always really liked. It was a slightly more indie album, was The Last of the Light, whereas I think the one I'm going to do now is going to have a fuller sound. And I'm looking forward to making it happen.
Yeah. Let me ask you, during the lockdown, did you do a lot of writing?
Yeah, I did a lot of writing, but actually that was a lot of how I got Last of the Light finished, really. It was getting that final push. I was a very lucky situation that I was working at this company and they furloughed me on 70% wages. They basically paid 70% of my wage for a few months. So I was having a pretty amazing lockdown, really. I mean, it's boring not being able to go out, but I was very lucky. And I had all this time, so I was able to write a little bit and finish off these bits and pieces around the album and get it ready. So yeah, it was great. And I've pretty much written an album. It's one of those things you have with writing, that you find you've got 15 or 20 songs, but some of them are just too dark, or some of them are actually even sometimes too poppy, and you just don't know quite how you're going to put them together into an album. So I've been sort of toying with that. And also one or two of them have been very difficult to nail lyrically, which is, these are all these are all musician-y things. I don't think they're that interesting to the general public, but that's the kind of thing that obsesses me, you know.
Going back to COVID, did family and friends, did everybody survive close to you?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, there has been some family illness, but I don't think it's been connected specifically to COVID. So we didn't. I was very, you know, I've been very lucky that I haven't got anybody. I mean, a friend of mine, his bass player passed away. So his bass player, I mean, the bass player in his band passed away, which he was very upset about. Our lockdowns were pretty heavy, you know. I mean, we really were locked down. I mean, I just used to go to the park once a day I took up running just because it was something to do, yeah. So it didn't affect me too much.
That's good to hear. Yeah, we all came through it all right. I didn't know anybody personally, but we got our shots and all that. So yeah, we were conservative. So yeah.
You're quite spread out there, aren't you? Though I mean,
yeah,
in a place like London, transport can be a real nightmare because the trains are very crowded. And I mean, if you've got your own car and your own house and it's fairly separate, I imagine it's easier to keep socially distant.
Yes, it is. Have you visited the States?
I lived in the States for 18 months around the turn of the century. Lived in San Francisco.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So, I have some familiarity with the issues there. It was a lovely time. You know, I really enjoyed myself. It was nothing to do with me. My wife got a promotion, and I just went out there, and I had some clients that I had here that I was able to work for, and I just, I had a great time. It was a fabulous city. I hear it's a little darker now than it was in the past. They've got some social problems, but it was a wonderful place to live around the year 2000. Yeah.
I actually just yesterday had an interview with John Carter. Do you recall a 60s, 70s songwriter, the Ivy League, also Flower Pot Man?
It's vaguely familiar.
Yeah, Beach Baby. Remember the song?
I know Beach Baby. I remember that tune.
Yeah, his wife, and he wrote that. So there was a lot of songwriting. Anyway, kind of an interesting story because tying it in with San Francisco, they wrote a song called "Let's Go to San Francisco," and it's not Scott McKenzie's San Francisco.
That was one of my records, by the way.
This is a different one. Came out at the same time.
That's not. Let's go to San Francisco. See that one?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, it does.
The Scott McKenzie one was "If You're Going to."
If You're Going. Yeah, they did come out, you know, around at the same time. Anyway, I said, well, talk about the origin of, you know, where'd you come up with the name Flower Pot Men? And they said there was this children's TV show where there were these two puppets, and they were like flowers. And it said it was long running too. And I guess back in the 70s. And then there was one called Weed.
Little Weed, yeah.
Are you familiar?
Yeah, I think you can still find it on YouTube or something. It's very, very strange.
So they were saying, you know, like the connection, flower, you know, the time of, you know, let's go to San Francisco, flower, you know, power, and then you know, weed, you know, you get the connection. But I said that's.
I know. They used to get away with this stuff even on children's shows. I don't know how, but it's a more naive time.
I said, did anybody, did the public complain or read into that? TV show about, you know, I thought that was funny. They said no, as far as they know, nobody picked up on the connection.
I know. It was not. It was probably a real in joke, you know. It was just
right. Exactly. So anyway, just a little funny side note. Talk about your family then.
Sorry, in what way?
Oh,
what
your
they're up
family.
to.
Yeah, what, yeah, your family life, yeah.
Oh,
Talk about.
my life at home. Well, I live with my wife, Ruth,
Mhm.
in North London, and yeah, we have quite a nice life. We both work in marketing now. We have a cat. There's not much more to say, really. We don't have any kids,
Okay, okay,
but yeah, we're a pretty happy life here.
okay. Well,
And
that's interesting because two in a row. John also, I don't know, he's probably in his late 70s. He and his wife have no kids. The one I just interviewed, I just did, and I had just sent out like a blast, not a blast, but I sent to several people that I had interviewed. You know, Happy Father's Day. Father's Day was recently, and of course he didn't respond. And I'm like, okay. After we had the interview, then I understand why. You know, and I didn't say anything about that, but I'm sure he understood. You know.
oh, I'm sure he's fine about it. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
You know, you get broody when you're in your, you know, you get broody as a young person, but there does come a point when I think it does fade a little bit, and you put your energy into, you know, in our case, into our nieces and nephews,
Right.
and you know, I've got five, so that's enough for me.
Right. Right. Well, I just have the one son, so yeah, and we decided to stop there. So yeah. What about other interests outside of music?
Well, I moved into copywriting after music because, I mean, you tend to find this with bands. You know, the guy that used to drive the van ends up running a van company. The guy that was the real artist in the band will probably join a design agency and start doing album covers, which is what Sean did. And in my case, I was always the lyric writer in the band. Well, not always, but mostly. And I thought, well, I put a lot of investment into this skill. I might as well try and, you know, turn a buck with it. And I ended up being a copywriter, which is how I make most of my money now. So I've been doing that for quite a long time. And yeah, and it works. You know, it's still creative. It's still interesting. I kind of put the guitar away for a long time, and then you know, it gets to a crazy number of years since you actually picked it up, and then I started picking it up. You know, but I'm not sure if I answered the whole question there. What are my interests? Yeah, interests. I guess reading is a big thing with me. I read very widely. I usually have 10 books on the go at any one time. And I'm completely fascinated by this book, The Case Against Reality by Donald Hoffman, which I think is a wonderful book about how we're not, as human beings, we don't see reality. We kind of see what nature wants us to see, I guess, is a summary of it. And he goes into quite some detail to explain it. So I really love that. I love novels as well. And I'm a big fan of the Leeds United football team. We've got Jesse Marsh as our manager, which is quite interesting, stateside manager. And one or two American players now as well. What else am I into? Yeah. Yeah, arts generally, I suppose. I suppose I've always liked music and art. And I take a lot of photographs. I've got
Right. I was going to say photography.
Instagram is a big thing with me. I do a lot of pictures because I find when I go on my travels, wherever I go, it really helps me get a deeper insight into a place when I take pictures. It's the process is really, you know, keep looking at things so you really appreciate what you see, and the output of that is lots and lots of photographs that I regularly post of, most recently France. And yeah, I absolutely love that. In fact, I have an American friend, photographer friend, well, not really my friend, he's a friend of my friend called, I have to look him up actually, John, he's called, I want to get his name because, oh God, I'll be lucky if I do. Anyway, he takes really good pictures of ordinary life, and I love his work. And I got to work with him one Christmas, New Year's Eve, and it was just amazing that the similarities between a photographer as an artist when they're operating as an artist and a musician. I mean, you're doing a lot of the same things. I found the process very interesting. And there were similarities that I didn't expect. And when I was talking with the photographers, it's almost like as if you'd been speaking the same, you had a secret language that you'd never really used. And then somebody comes along who speaks that language and suddenly you can talk it. I found that really fascinating. And yeah, he's a great guy, a magnificent photographer. And actually also, strangely enough, takes exactly the kind of photographs I want to take, which are, real life, candid sort of pictures of what happens in life. Million times better than I do, but it was great to actually even just talk with him,
Right. I think that can be said of just about any artist, whether you're painting, writing, performing, you have a certain kinship, there's a certain, you're speaking, like you said, a very similar language, if not the same language. Yeah.
It's like French and English. They have similar words.
Expressing it in a different way.
Yeah.
What I've always liked about music, as opposed to the other art forms, is it's that continuous flow. You can't stop it at any point, and say, okay, let's observe it. You can't, because it's like a flow of music, where you can take any other kind of art form. You can take a movie, a still. Okay, now we can analyze it. Art in a museum, is static, that kind of thing. But as far as music, that's what has always appealed to me. You can't just stop it, at any point. It flows. It's like life.
That's it exactly. You can kind of live in it.
Right.
I think that's what I always liked about it, is it's immersive. You can really be immersed in it. And I think also, I tried to write a film script. I tried to write a book. Mm-hmm. I just found that what I wasn't saying was as important as what I was saying in writing lyrics. I like ambiguity. I like being a little vague about what I'm trying to say, and the emotion, or actually it's not even that. What it is I'm trying to put an emotion across. There's no rule book. You just got to somehow use words and sound in a way that gives that emotion. And music's unique like that, because I think I'm well suited to that. I like that freedom. I'm not particularly interested in writing a plot that brings out things, or I'm not particularly interested in writing a film script that takes you there. I'm more interested in the slightly otherworldly moods that you come into that you can't really explain even. That's the inexplicable, I guess, is what interests me about music. I get feelings off music that I don't even understand, and I guess that's the real kind of I like
what I call the gray area. I like the gray area, and I'm a little bit ambivalent towards video. Remember, Video Killed the Radio Star, the song, came out, because before MTV, I do enjoy some music videos, of course, but before that, it was up to the individual listener what kind of images they had in their mind, or what the image brought out in them, and then once you started making a video, then it's like, okay, it's defined, in the video. And that's what everybody correlates with the music. And I think so. There's a part of that I kind of, wished we had never gotten to that video generation, but because then it left it up to the individual.
That's totally how I feel. Like,
yeah,
I probably could watch a video of many songs. I've got so many songs I've never even bothered to find out whether there's a video or not. And sometimes when there is, I hate it.
Right.
There was a song by Phoenix that came out recently that I really liked, and when I saw the video, it just annoyed me. They're not actors. They just didn't look convincing on camera. It was all a bit off, and I never watched it again. I have seen videos I've liked, but often they've been close to the music. But Strangely enough, though, one thing I have discovered is that I do like DVDs that have music in them, you know, a music theme, like The Fabulous Baker Boys is a movie I watch over and over. I just has such a strong evocation of New York. And also a movie called A Heart in Winter, because it's about a violinist. And I think the DVDs that I keep, as opposed to the ones that I just send back to the charity shop, they always have a musical element to them. But I totally agree with your point. To me, music is ultimately mysterious, and the feelings I get off it are mysterious. And I don't particularly need that to be explained to me. I mean, for example, with a song like Don't Take Me Alive by Steely Dan, I have a complete, you know, NYPD Blue image in my head of, you know, there's an active shooter and the crowd are kind of
right,
milling around, and then what's going on in the guy's head. And I don't need a video for that. I've got that reel going on the whole time, you know. But also sometimes more mysterious things. I mean, what is kind of blue, you know? It's a mood. There's no lyrics. There's no guide. You just go on a mental journey to sort of interpret it your way.
The same thing with foreign music. Let's say German, French. You don't speak the language. A lot of people are like, I don't understand the lyrics. I can't get into the music. No, I'm like, let the music, you know, flow through you. I appreciate foreign music, even if I can't speak or I don't understand what they're saying. Same with classical music. I mean, you know, you don't have to have lyrics there. So there's,
or you can't even hear them because classical singing is often very hard.
Right.
Yeah. I'm the same totally. In fact, there are a lot of songs in English that are ruined by the lyrics. You know, I really like the song and I really wish it had different lyrics. Whereas if I listen to like somebody like Milton Nascimento, who I'm very fond of, not sure if he pronounces it that way, the Brazilian singer that I really love. I have no idea what he's on about, but it doesn't matter because the things I like about music are the emotions that the singer can kind of bring up. And that's not a verbal language to me. And that's actually, even though I earn my money as a writer, and even though I'm a lyric writer, the favorite part of music with me is the music.
The music, the melody. It has to have a melody. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I love.
Can you think of anything else you'd like to add?
Not really, other than, have another look at the album to your viewers. I think I've explained why I made it and what was behind it, and I think people should give it a listen because I don't think it's like anything else that's out there. And give it an ear. See what you might be surprised.
Well, thank you, Brendan, so much. And enjoyed it. Now you can move the camera back to the bookcase.
No, I think I'll move it even further away.
Further away. Okay. All right. Well, you can see all my vinyl back here. Probably behind you.
You've got a lot, haven't you? You've got a hell of a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot that I haven't replaced on CD, so I'm still holding on to those. And I've got my turntable, but then when I got a new computer, I lost the software somehow. So I'm not able to. I was recording some onto MP4, MP3, but I've got to either get a new software or whatever, figure that out. But yeah. So.
Well, it's great. I mean, I love it. I don't actually. I have some CDs, but I've never been that bothered about the format. To be honest, it's just not a thing with me. It's like I like Kindles as well. Right. I think also the fact I'm slightly allergic to dust has always sort of done me in when it comes to collecting vinyl. But my niece got a record player, an old vinyl record player the other day. It was quite exciting, you know, putting it on. She had all these classic albums to play, and it was great fun. Great fun putting it on and hearing them.
Oh yeah. Well, some people say, you know, you can't beat the sound vinyl, you know, and so.
Well, I'm going to find out because there's a new craze in London now where these clubs where they bought £500,000 worth of hi-fi and they build a room that's really great for listening, and then they're going to put on classic albums like I don't know, like Kind of Blue or whatever, and I just can't wait to go and check it out, you know, and hear albums in the kind of hi-fi sounds that I will never be able to afford. I'm actually really looking forward to going there and checking it out. It's called Brilliant Corners, this club, and I can't wait to go and hear it. I don't know if they were hit by COVID, so I'll have to find out, because they were opening around that time. But I just think it's a fantastic idea, because I've been saying for so long that a lot of rooms now, restaurants and cafes and places like that, the only thing they don't take account of is sound. So all the walls and the floors, the sound's bouncing everywhere, and it can be really loud and you can't hear it. Whereas in the old days, certainly in English pubs, there used to be very carpets and big drapes and lots of people, and you could always hear the songs even when they were quite low. Well, this place, I think, wants to get us all back listening to music again, and I applaud it. I think it's fantastic. I'm not sure if it's vinyl that's doing it. I'm not sure if it's vinyl or they're just going to do some kind of digital songs with incredible hi-fi, but I'm really looking forward to hearing it.
Wow. I saw a video not too long ago about there's talking about a resurgence in cassettes too. How we got the vinyl. I don't know if it's going to come back like vinyl, but yeah.
I don't know. I think it's just another stream, isn't it? It's just another way of listening to music. Me personally, I've always loved putting together a load of tracks that are sort of a similar theme, like say Nighttime or Holiday or whatever, and then just knowing what the songs are, but not knowing what order they're going to come, and just letting them roll. So I love the digital age for that. I'm not giving that up. I mean, I have some favorite albums of all time that I can definitely put on. I mean, John Martyn's One World, for example, Asia, or I've got certain albums that I listen to all the time, and I can listen to them from beginning to end, and it's fantastic. But I love mixing things up, really.
Oh yeah, myself included. All right, well, let's go ahead, and like I said, we could go on. I've enjoyed it, Brendan, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much for getting in touch. I've really enjoyed talking about it and going over the old days.
Oh sure. It's like I said, it's what I'm about, and what this channel's about. So hopefully there'll be more in the future.
Yeah, I'll check in and sign up and check out the other interviews. That'd be great.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that. And you take care, and have a good summer, I guess.
Yeah, we're just starting on it.
Yeah.
English summer though, not always that great.
All right. Well, take care, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah. Thanks a lot then, Greg. Take care of yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Brendan.
Cheers then. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.